Welcome to the Decoders, where we demystify and decode some of today's biggest ideas. The show is presented by Aviso AI, the end-to-end revenue platform used by go-to-market teams at New Relic, DataStax, and Honeywell. Today's episode features Frank Borovsky. Frank is one of the most respected and knowledgeable executives in manufacturing, having successful and extensive runs at Honeywell Aerospace and Building Technologies, Eaton, Ricoh, Clubcar, Salesforce, and most recently launching B2Beyond. Let's welcome Frank to the show and jump right in. Frank, welcome to the Decoders.
Thank you, Kevin. Glad to be here.
Now, Frank, when we first spoke, you told me all about your marketing experience, but you also had sales experience and operations. Quite a lot of knowledge. Tell me, earlier learning lessons, something you want to highlight from your earlier career. What could you share with the audience?
Yeah, as you get more advanced in your career, you look back and I think the things that you regret most are not taking the risks and making the changes early on in your career. So I think making sure that you're always advancing your game and taking the risks that at the time may seem huge, but knowing that even when you fail, you win by learning. So I think that's the biggest takeaway. The other thing, and I'll do this real quick, is that you should always be taking advantage of every opportunity to build your network, because over career changes, your community matters more than you might even imagine at the time. So it's never too soon to be reaching out and networking with everyone you possibly can.
I think particularly relevant in the sales and marketing space, right? You hear about community nowadays. I know there's a lot of great knowledge shared in groups like Pavilion and others. So that's great advice. Frank, having a ton of experience in manufacturing, what, from your perspective, are the most valuable traits you've gained just from like the manufacturing side?
From the manufacturing side, I think perseverance is among them, and being data driven, particularly in the manufacturing world, matters a lot, where numbers rule, and being able to put forth your business case. You didn't ask the question, but I will answer it anyway, which is one of the things that my more recent career has brought to me is in the world of Salesforce. And I will say that most manufacturing companies really lack for emotional intelligence. And that's something that I've been trying to work on for decades. Salesforce actually exceeds at that. And I think I am a better and maybe a kinder, gentler person for having worked at Salesforce. So I feel like I got grounded in the manufacturing world, but I got elevated as a result of working with Salesforce.
Is there a particular activity or a particular event that you remember the most when it comes from your Salesforce experience?
The whole onboarding was done so well. From the day, from even the moment that I accepted the role, to the amount of training that they gave in person, online. Remember, this was during the COVID period. And I felt that it was deep and broad. I happen to know a lot of the products coming from Salesforce because my teams had implemented Salesforce for the last 16 years. But I got a new appreciation for them. And I learned a lot about the culture, the Ohana. I think a lot of organizations miss that opportunity to make that first impression on their employees. And Salesforce did an exceptional job.
It's an important aspect to, I think, even tying it back to sales, right? Increasing a rep's time to productivity. We know from an onboarding perspective, it's such an important time for them to absorb what's happening with the culture, understand the different sales plays at work, understand the products, hear about the customer, and just really spend time detailing what that life cycle of the customer is like so they are positioned to help them. When you start to think about best in class, or when you start to think about some of the challenges rather in manufacturing and some of the changes that have happened over the last few years as a result of advancing technologies, what would you pinpoint are three of the biggest challenges in manufacturing today?
Well, specifically in manufacturing, I think the biggest trend has been going on since the moment I entered almost 30 years ago. And I remember when I asked that question when I joined Honeywell Aerospace, I said, "Hey, what's your biggest concern?" And they said, and this is 30 years ago, they said the aging workforce, right? and the concern about unlocking all of what was in the brains of their engineers, and all of their personnel, and being able to document it for the next generation to be able to pass it on. Well, I mean, none of those people have gotten any younger, right? And so the situation has exacerbated over the decades, and now we really are in a crisis for talent, particularly in the manufacturing world, where a lot of folks didn't grow up in that particular space the same way as my parents did, for example. And so the aging workforce is probably number one. So finding, training, and retaining employees, just like we were discussing with Salesforce, I would say that's the biggest and most important challenge. The second one is that expectations in manufacturing have changed. And today, the B2B world has been much more influenced by the B2C experiences that we have as consumers every day. And so they expect more. They expect it to be easy to do business with. And employees expect a company to be easy to work for. And if you don't do both of those things, you're going to be in a world of hurt. And then the last change, and this is a little bit self-serving, but I believe it to be true, is digital transformation. Manufacturers, I think primarily because they feel that if they build a better widget, people will come. They've been extraordinarily slow in the adoption of technology focused specifically on the customer. And I think that is that's a challenge that all manufacturers have, and some have advanced the game, which is fantastic. But I have seen, particularly over the past couple of years, as I've gotten a view of the larger vista, that there's a lot of catching up to do in this sector. Fortunately, you can do it, but you have to have the will.
I think it's well said, particularly about trying to not just digitally transform your own internal operations and your outside properties, but leveraging some of those channels to kind of reach new customers. Honeywell is a great example. One of the companies we work with over at Aviso, we started working with them a few years ago. And one of the big benefits they got out of the Aviso platform is their ability to actually increase their amount of digital interactions. We saw through the use of our tool, they're able to increase their digital interactions by over 75%. That translated to, I believe, 150 million in new revenue won, and even some cost savings on the CRM side. Frank, when you start to think about what does best-in-class go-to-market look like in manufacturing, what would you tell our audience? You've touched marketing, sales, and operations, so I feel like you're uniquely qualified to give us some advice.
Well, interesting because, of course, Honeywell is one of my alma maters, and we went through a substantial digital transformation at Honeywell Building Technologies under our Titan project, which was e-commerce. But to answer your question directly, I think the word omni-channel is overused, but I really can't think of a better one. People want to work with companies that allow them to conduct business whatever way they want. And if that means over the counter in a store so be it. You better be able to serve them quickly and politely, face to face. If it's over the phone, then you better not have any hold times. You better be talking to someone who knows their stuff and can get off the phone quickly, right? Um, and then, of course, if it's online, as I was just describing, you had better have the top of the line e-commerce experience and ensure that that widget is available to ship when and how they need it. That is crucial in the B2B world. And best in class, you know, it's hard because everything keeps on moving, but you got to keep pace. You might not have to necessarily be at the bleeding edge, but you have to be good enough so that your customers are not moving as a result of poor experience, customer experience.
Yeah, that seamless integration from demand to inventory to being able to get back to the customer very tightly we requires very tightly woven components and good interlocking and good connectivity. Um, Frank, what about AI, right? We're hearing about it, generative AI, revenue intelligence, or if you've been following this trend the last few years, you certainly know about natural language processing and just AI in general. Tell me a little bit about, from your own perspective, what excites you about artificial intelligence?
Well, you're right. There have been multiple generations in this space, machine learning being one of the older ones. And, I think we've now arrived at that new world, and it's exciting, but it's a little bit like boarding a roller coaster. Um, so I'm both excited and frightened at the same time. Um, I am absolutely certain that this is the biggest disruptor that we've seen in technology since the internet. Um, and I think it's going to change everything that we do. And I'm excited about the opportunities that it can present in, in medicine, in commerce, all of the sciences. And it even gives me hope for solving climate change. Um, on the other hand, it's a lot like social media. In the hands of the wrong parties, AI can be a weapon of mass disruption, or even worse. So I think it's a tool in the right hands, and people need to know how to use it. Um, but it also can be a weapon. And the other thing that I caution folks on is two things. One, um, make sure that your application of AI, if you're utilizing it for business person, is based upon good data. Because if you don't have good data to start with, then you're going to get very bad answers. And then the second thing is context matters. And this goes back to what I was talking about with your employees. If you do not have folks who are experienced and understand the variances in your business, if you go strictly to the answers that AI provides, you may miss a lot of context that really matters, and you may make actually poor decisions because you didn't understand the reasons why.
I think it's really important to call that out because it's not just the AI hallucinations, right? Which is when they spit out an incorrect answer. It's ensuring that you have a strong policy around ensuring the accuracy of the data and the training models. Now, that's why I think you hear more of the advanced companies talk a little bit about the aspect of where does the human get involved and the human in the loop component. One of the things we believe very strongly is kind of matching, right? The data collection, the analysis could be done through AI, but always good to have that human layer just to ensure that the practice is efficient and that it's tight and that everyone's thinking about the right bottom line number because they know how important it's going to be for the rest of the organization. Frank, we're very happy to obviously have you supporting what we're doing on the Aviso side. Let's talk a little bit about what got you excited about Aviso.
Well, first of all, I'm very, very careful about which companies I advise and whose brand I'm going to actually promote. I never really work with anyone that I wouldn't buy if I were a practitioner, which I've been for all those years. Um, and Aviso, I think, serves a great purpose in the manufacturing space. And candidly, I think I can help.
Now, you've seen the platform, you understand the history of the platform, growing beyond forecasting, being able to do things like conversational intelligence, as well as what we're doing with generative AI. But taking a step back as someone who's seen some of the challenges in manufacturing, understands what good sales and marketing looks like, what aspects and what capabilities are you most excited about the Aviso platform?
Okay, specifically as it relates to manufacturing, I've got to triple down on demand forecasting, and for a reason. Let me explain. Um, Most manufacturers do a very, very poor job of what's called the SNOP process, right? This is the demand folks coming together with the supply folks, usually the head of your sales and the head of operations or integrated supply chain. And they get together on a quarterly, monthly, even a weekly basis, if necessary, to figure out what is it we're going to actually build, right? And that matters an awful lot. As we were talking about before with regard to e-commerce, if you build the wrong stuff or you don't have enough of it, then you're going to have a lot of dissatisfied customers, right? Yeah, because the number one thing is, can I get my widget? And when can I get my widget? And can I rely upon when I'm going to get my widget? If you do the SNOP process wrong, that's going to throw you off kilter. On the flip side, if you get it wrong and you overbuild, then you're going to be sitting on a pile of inventory, and that's costing your business, right? And that's not good for anyone either. So, what I really like about what Aviso does is helps take into account a lot of the variables that most sales leaders don't, right? So they usually come in with their Excel spreadsheet, and they come and the folks in supply chain come with their supply Excel spreadsheet. And generally speaking, they fight over the numbers. And it's whose data is better. What Aviso does is it takes into account a number of factors that no one would have thought of on their own. And it's kind of like an advisor sitting on your shoulder, whispering in your ear with little facts that you would not have given consideration to along the way. And as a result of taking into all these different factors, and MIKI in particular being that kind of tickler, giving you that advice, I feel like you have an opportunity for a much stronger forecast. And as a result, the whole business and your customers will run a lot more smoothly.
Frank, you touched on one of the unique aspects that we built into the platform, and that's called MIKI, right? That's our generative AI chief of staff. And part of that is designed to be, as you described, right? A little bit more than an assistant that just summarizes and maybe captures data, but has that ability to answer questions for you. When you think about this type of technology and how it's available today, something that maybe you might argue ordinarily might have only been available to the executive team 10 years ago, what opportunities do you see for this type of technology to change manufacturing?
I think that this can grow to provide advice. It's interesting. Some of my folks at Salesforce had kind of called me a sales whisperer. And I was kind of whispering in their ear to say, hey, you should be thinking about this, or you should be thinking about that. I feel that MIKI can actually grow into being a value chain whisperer, right? Providing recommendations along every single aspect of the value chain. And it's going to, like I said before, it's going to be picking up aspects of the business that most humans are just not going to be able to. And that's really the power of what AI brings, and how a trained tool like MIKI can help over a period of time.
Well, they say, the power of an iPhone in like 2000 was stronger than anything any president had, 20, 30 years ago. And if you think about what AI is doing for any employee, it's putting that instant decision making and data in the palm of their hands. Frank, we talked a little bit about Aviso. We talked a little bit about what you've seen in the manufacturing space. We want to hear what you're up to at B2 Beyond. Tell us what you're doing over there.
Well, thank you for asking. I really do appreciate that.
Wow.
I've formally relaunched my LLC called B2 Beyond. You're welcome to visit the website, and this is just my way of helping solution providers as well as manufacturers themselves in the ecosystem at large, based upon the experiences that I've had. And so the focus is heavily on the digital transformations that are occurring, whether that's something along the lines of implementing a new CRM, or getting more out of the investments you've already made in things like CRM, customer service, field support, that sort of thing. And I've been very fortunate to have companies that have made those investments. And, I've stubbed my toes a few times and learned a few things. And so I'm really just here to help them based upon the experiences that I've had in the past. And so I'm really just here to help. I would encourage your audience to give me a call and just see if there's any assistance I can lend to them.
Frank, it's been awesome talking.
The pleasure.